Really, as far as some speaking skills, which I definitely developed in the little bit that I did do speaking at Toastmasters, it's definitely the importance of being authentic, being your true self. You know, tell your own story. Don't try to be something you're not, but also try to be a bit entertaining. And I mentioned a little bit earlier with I still remember your Miyagi life lesson speech, and there was an entertainment aspect to that, which helped to really help me to really remember that and what you were saying. But I try to do that as well with a few speeches that I gave. One speech I gave, it was the information speech, and I talked about starting a small business, and there's an acronym um, called MOO, and that's marketing, operations, and organization. And so those are three key areas you have to get down as far as putting together a business plan and defining them. But at the very end, I said, you need to milk this for all it's worth and remember the MOO acronym. But I remember everybody laughing, and I'm not used to making people laugh very often, so that kind of sticks with me when that happens. So
Hello, fellow and future Toastmasters. Welcome to the Evolving in Toastmasters podcast by Journey to You. I'm your host, Nick, and I'm here with a former Toastmaster that I met through the Susquehanna Club, where we're going to find out about his experiences in Toastmasters and how we can help current and future Toastmasters learn about the Toastmasters experience, what benefits and values lie there, what you can get out of it, how it can help you in your career and in your life, and get you ahead with communication and leadership skills. With that, my friend Jason Crayley from the Susquehanna Toastmasters Club a while ago. Please welcome Jason. And first question out the door is, at the time that you joined Toastmasters, Jason, where were you working?
I was working, I joined back in the fall of 2012. I was active for a little over 2 years through the spring, early summer timeframe of 2015. And I was working in Aberdeen Proving Ground North, APG, Maryland. At the time, it was referred to as Research Development Engineering Command, RDECOM headquarters. That has since been replaced by Combat Capabilities Development Command, DevCom. So I had just started there in 2011, working at headquarters in the Global Technology Office, which oversaw international programs for RDECOM and its 7 subordinate laboratories. So it was very, very interesting time in my life. And so all at once, I was doing a lot of things that I really had, in a way, dreamed about doing. But with that responsibility came the need to do a lot more public speaking, not just speaking with senior leaders in the Army, but also communicating our international programs, goals, and objectives to a broader audience too in the laboratories. So the timing was really optimal for me to join Toastmasters, and that's what I chose to do.
All right, very cool. I'm still with DevCom under C5ISR. Been there.
Which was CERDEC at the time.
Yeah.
Every laboratory and organization changes names every few years, as we know.
Yep, and I had about 3 years where I wasn't under there. I went over to CCOM for a little bit, but
Okay.
I'm back underneath there, working in a really great lab.
Right.
So before we jump into all the Toastmasters questions, I appreciate that great background of why you came to Toastmasters. I want to have a little fun with our guests and get to know them a little bit more. We're going to run this kind of like table topics, where I'm going to give you a question. You have as much time as you want to answer, though. No timer today. But talk as much as you want, and then maybe I'll fire back with a few follow-ups. All right, so the first question is, what book are you most likely to give as a gift?
What book would I give as a gift? Well, first thing that just came to my mind, and since this is really appropriate for a Toastmasters podcast, the Seven Habits. Yeah, Stephen Covey, Habits of Highly Effective People. Right, that's the one everybody talks about. I read it years ago, but that's still stuck with me. Just talking about the need to really prioritize, and you have the tyranny of the urgent is a concept in there. There are urgent things which need our attention right away. Tend to get sidetracked on those things, but the really important items that aren't tend to be not as urgent, and that's where we really want to focus our time. And so there's some good lessons there that I really recall, and as far as something which I think somebody could gain something from, as far as time management, prioritization, and overall self-development. I think that's an excellent book.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I uh, did an audio version of that one on my company's educational like learning platform.
Mhm.
Um, is either that author or another one, but the habits definitely are all the same.
Yeah.
That For
Mm.
leadership growth. Great choice. All right, so next question: what movie can you not resist watching if it's on?
I'm gonna have to go to, one of my favorite, movie series, and that's Indiana Jones, and really, I know The Temple of Doom does not tend to be a favorite, but that one's mine. It's the first one I saw when I was a kid back in the '80s, and, I love that. I know it's not aged well in some parts, but, I love going back to that, and, I have the privilege now of sharing a love for that movie with my own sons now, who enjoy watching that with me as well at this point. So I'd have to say that. There are a few other ones. Back to the Future is another one. So anything from the '80s, or I wouldn't, well, not anything, but a lot of movies from the '80s. Definitely can't
Yeah,
resist them.
yeah. The Indiana Jones series is one of my wife's favorites. Is it was always on like TNT or something during the Thanksgiving weekend, so we tend to
Hmm.
watch it. I got like the Blu-ray set, so we'd put on Raiders, and then we'd watch Last
Yeah.
Crusade, and then Temple of Doom was more like a um was a scary type movie for me when I was younger, so I was okay skipping that one every now and then, but it still has some really great moments in it and some really interesting
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
Um, with the the guy, the bad guy that's like rips people's hearts out. I mean, that's just crazy. This is
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little bit too much for a lot of people, I know.
but
But,
the chase scene at the end of that one's really great.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that one of your favorites, Nick, I remember from one of your speeches when I was in Toastmasters with you, Karate Kid, right? You did
Yeah,
give a
that's
speech
right.
on Miyagi life lessons.
Yeah, so that's definitely a movie series that I don't miss when it's on. I love the first two of that series, and yes, I'll take life's lessons right out of it and apply them, and I'll try and teach them through
Yeah.
Toastmasters in my speeches. So yeah,
I
Miyagi Life Lessons was like
Yeah,
the third or fourth speech I gave at the club.
and, I remember you giving a preview of the title. I think we met every other week, 2 weeks before you gave that, and I made it a point, no matter what was going on, I was had to be at that next meeting to hear that that speech. I was looking forward to it. So, yeah, it's one of my memories from Toastmasters at the time.
It's great that you can recall a speech from somebody from that long ago. That's
Yeah, and you
that's
started
awesome.
off with, like, wax on, wax off, that was the coolest thing too.
Yeah, classic. All right. So, what would you say is the proudest moment of your life so far?
Uh, I well, definitely, the birth of my kids, watching them and grow up and the amazing things they do. They're just, I know you have kids too, Nick, 2,
Yep.
and teenagers, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Both in high school now. It's crazy.
Yeah. So my kids are almost 17, 15. My son just turned 15 yesterday. Younger son turned 15 yesterday, and my daughter will be 13 in April. And, they are all definitely their own individuals, their own unique talents and interests. Um, I see little bits of me in each of them. And a lot of the time, I'm just amazed that these human beings I'm somehow their father. They just are just that awesome. So they definitely make me proud continually.
Yeah.
Not every single moment, I have to say. You know how that goes, but overall, it's definitely a lot of joy in the end. But
Yeah.
I guess punctuated with frustrations here and there.
I'd say parenthood is like one of the greatest joys in life. I love taking
Yeah.
my kids and showing them new things. Um, and I one of the proudest things I hear is when we're somewhere new and they met somebody and maybe somebody that I know, and they come up to me and say just how well behaved and how
Mm.
respectful my
Yeah.
kids are,
Yeah.
or how like great human beings they are and how compassionate they are. Those kinds of things. I that's This just makes me like my heart swell up. Like I
Yeah.
just have to thank them for that.
Yeah. You must be doing something right.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my wife had a lot to do with that.
Well, mine
So,
too. She gets a lot of credit for that too.
all right, so now you've written your autobiography. What do you title it?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I meant well. I
Manuel.
tried my best.
Just full of mistakes that were made. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
so, if you had to kind of to steer what would be in that book, what lessons would you want to leave? What do you want people to take away from you when they interact with you?
yeah, well, that I care, which, I know it doesn't always come across, you know, a lot of depending on your personality type, a lot of people may be obvious in that and how they come across it, but maybe not so much myself. Um, but just that, certainly for my loved ones that, they meant a lot to me, and I was willing to do what I had to love and support them. And I think that as time goes on, I'll need to. I'm entering a more contemplative phase of my life, I guess, at this point, where I'll have to really kind of think about what are those big life lessons I'm trying to pass on, and what legacy do I want to leave. But I'd say that starting with just uh, the love I have for my family is definitely a good foundation.
Yeah, and don't wait for those kids to leave for college to tell them those life lessons that you want them to take away.
Yeah, yes. Hopefully, I'll see them come back every now and
Yeah, and hopefully they're still listening.
then. Right, right.
Teenagers are tough. I got to
Well,
pick my spots when I do try to uh, lay
you
that
just have
wisdom down.
right. You just have to repeat it a few times, and eventually it will sink in. So,
All right, I meant well. I love that.
yeah.
It lines up really well with what we just talked about. So I think we should go with that. All right, what is something that's on your bucket list?
Well, I have an easy answer for that one, and that's something that is actually coming up in the near future. So, I've been wanting to go to Italy for a long time. I've been to several countries in Western Northern Europe, but Italy's not been one of them. But I have an opportunity coming up in the summer of 2026 to go there with my younger son, Ryan, with a high school trip. And so they're starting in Rome, and then they're working their way around to to Nice in France, going through Monaco. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'll get to cross it off my bucket list and spend some quality time with my son. And he's very excited. We just told him yesterday was his birthday, and over the weekend we had a party for him and let him know that he will be going. So I'm
Very
looking forward to
cool.
that. Yeah.
We did a school trip this past summer. We went to the Galapagos, which was on my bucket list.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. My
spectacular.
parents went there.
Now, with the trip, the dinners they avoided the ethnic food in the area.
Hmm.
It was all Americanized food for the dinners, and that was one thing that I would
Yeah.
definitely recommend
Yeah.
to avoid as much as possible, especially in Italy. Well, get to those local restaurants and sit and eat the local food.
Well, this tour is actually my son is in the Natural Resources Program at North Hartford High School, and so it's an agricultural-based tour. So the, um, the the stops are focused on visiting farms and different, food production areas, and
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah, there's a vineyard we visit, cheese making, a lot of different opportunities to enjoy the local cuisine. So, definitely looking forward to that.
That's great. All right, I think we've got a few laughs in there. We got to know Jason a little bit better, and what a little bit about his family life and home life. Now let's get to Toastmasters. Back to how that may have um, affected his career and life after he joined. So
Mhm.
first, um, you talked a little bit about what brought you to Toastmasters, making that career switch, and getting to the headquarters and having to do more
Mhm.
briefings and
Yep.
more um, more public speaking opportunities. Um, but what convinced you or compelled you to join the Susquehanna Club?
Well, that's a great question. So, um, you know, I had to do a lot of public speaking, obviously going through school and then four-year degree and then the early part of my career. But it was once I got settled into the beginning of my career was at uh, Natick Soldiers Center outside of Boston, and we didn't do a whole lot of public speaking there. Um, and it wasn't something that was kind of at the forefront of my mind. Now, some people are natural public speakers. I'm not at all one of them. I I can remember going back to uh, middle school when it really started in earnest and doing regular presentations. I was terrified each time. I had some really bad memories of just really freezing when I got up in front of everybody. I um, really struggled quite a bit. So in around 2009, just a few years before I came to APG at RDCOM headquarters. So I had worked on completing a published paper on a military freefall analysis and simulation tool that I had worked on with an outside collaborator. So my background is in aerospace engineering, and at the time I was doing a little bit of that area of research, and so that was really the first time I did something like that. And then there was an opportunity to present that paper at a conference in Seattle. This was in the spring of 2009, and so I thought, well, I don't like public speaking, but I'll try to prepare, and I'm sure it'll just go fine. And I did a little bit of preparation, but I put it off. In honest, be honest, I put it off to the last minute, and so I wasn't really prepared for what awaited me there. So I went to the conference, and I was just doing the introduction part. I wasn't doing the real technical explanation of the kind of the meat of the paper that we put together. My colleague from the outside company was doing that, but it was just a very unpleasant experience. I got up, and it wasn't even a huge crowd, but it was enough um, of a crowd that I kind of just lost track of what I was saying. I didn't come across well. I didn't represent myself or my organization well. And So at that point, I thought to myself, well, I really need to make this a priority because I'm going to have to do more of this if I want any kind of advancement in my career, um, and really just better overall communication. And I remember after that incident, I met up with a colleague in the hallway afterwards, and they knew that I wasn't happy with the way it turned out. And they said, well, it we really don't get a lot of practice doing public speaking, and none of us are really comfortable with it. And I said, well, maybe I should join Toastmasters then, because maybe that would help. And so I started looking for opportunities in the area in Massachusetts where I was at the time. And the nearest active Toastmasters was out in Sturbridge, which was it's about a half an hour, 45 minutes from where I was living at the time. So it wasn't really practical to go there. My kids well, at the time, I just had my oldest son, and he was only a few months old, about a year old, I guess. I really just didn't have the time to do that. So when we moved to Maryland, and I saw that there was an active Toastmasters club, the Susquehanna club at the rec center, that aligned really well. And so then I started attending meetings, and then I saw that this is definitely a club of committed Toastmasters, and very open and welcoming to new folks. And it just lined up really well with my schedule at the time too, with the lunch meetings. So, so that's kind of the background. That's kind of the what really motivated me to getting to that point.
I will say that having the club on base and at lunchtime made it incredibly easy for
Hmm.
me to just do it. Um,
Yeah.
so having a club that's just going to meet your time management needs, that's crucial to you really committing to being there.
Hmm.
30 minutes away, that's rough. I had one club that was 5 minutes away, and my kids were 4 and 6 when I joined that one, and it was rough to go twice a month
Hmm.
to that one, as well as I was doing the other ones because I was just really serious about finishing my DTM to getting that Distinguished Toastmaster Award.
Hmm.
I was like, all
Hmm.
right, well, we're gonna buckle down, we're gonna knock out these speeches, we're gonna do all this leadership stuff, and, so I joined that third club to just get more opportunity to speak and do that stuff. And there was distinguished Toastmasters in that club, so I was like, all right, I got to do it. But pushing myself to get there in the evenings when I had this home life, young kids, and I didn't want to leave
Hmm.
them. I was
Yeah.
actually bringing them some week, some
Yeah.
nights.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but being at base, lunchtime is easy. It was a great getaway from work for a little bit, and you could use that experience and take it right back to the workplace. Um,
Hmm.
I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you joined, what we talked a little bit about what you wanted to get out of it. Where did you get that benefit that you wanted? Let's talk about that growth that you made while you're in the club.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely found that. And what I really got out of it was just, you mentioned a little bit, just now, Nick, just the accountability and, coming to the meeting every 2 weeks and being prepared and knowing that you have a role that you need to perform when you get there. Um, so if people aren't aware, there are several different roles at a typical Toastmaster meeting. There's the Toastmaster of the day, who's kind of the MC of the ceremonies. There's a grammarian, and the grammarian is the one who has the word of the day, right? Or is
Yep,
that
that's
yeah?
right.
And table topics master. So we did some table topics at the beginning of this, and that's same idea, just random questions. You have no idea what they are, but you get the opportunity to just speak off the top of your head for a little bit. But but those are all really great things to be ready for, um, and with that comes learning how to really put yourself out there and adapt to a new situation and really do the best you can and learn from your mistakes. Um, I just said, kind of is another one, right? So
I didn't want
you
to
have,
say anything.
yeah, excuse me. So, and part of that's built in as well with the active feedback at the end. So the counter would count the number of times you said during your speech, and then let each speaker know at the end, right? And then there's active feedback, so you have somebody critiquing each speech as well, and then they share that at the end. But the idea is that there's always room for everybody to improve, and there's always something you can learn um, uh, from the speech you're giving or the role that you're taking on. So um, definitely I got a lot of that, and so for me, I didn't focus so much though that's something that was left undone. I didn't focus so much on the competent communicator portion so much as the competent leader portion. The competent leader portion is focused on uh, fulfilling each of those different roles, some that I just mentioned. So I did end up finishing the competent leader portion of the distinguished Toastmaster track, but then the other part of that would be the competent communicator. Now, I only did the first 3 speeches, so I really didn't do a whole lot because there's at least 10, right, Nick?
Yep,
In
there were 10.
Okay. Yeah, so once you complete those 10, the competent communicator track and the competent leader track, then you have earned your distinguished Toastmaster designation.
Well, actually, the DTM, there were advanced communicator and leadership awards that you would also have to do beyond that. They were
Okay, so that's
smaller
just the
projects,
beginning.
more
Okay, so I didn't get as far as I thought, but yeah.
more specialized into doing like different types of speaking and leading. Um, and then there was the high performance leadership project. So it was like a project that you do where you're in a leadership position, which you can do.
Mhm,
It's just being a leader in the
mhm.
club, and you
Yeah,
just form a
yeah.
team and track all right your vision and mission for what you want to accomplish, what goals you want to
Yep,
accomplish, and you
yep.
go through that.
Okay.
Is is very it was a great program to really understand the different facets of leadership and then where your vulnerabilities are, where you're weak, and where you can improve, and then be able to focus on getting some feedback to improve those things.
Mhm.
So that was what was beyond that CL that you didn't get
Yeah,
to while you
yeah,
were
right, right, thank you for correcting me on that. I do remember, yeah, were the advanced portions that I didn't even start looking at those. But
there.
yeah,
Yeah, when all was said and done, it is about 50 speeches that you had to do to get to that DTM. So there's 10 in the competent communicator,
okay,
and then there's
okay,
10 more for the advanced
okay,
bronze, advanced silver, and
okay,
then there was advanced gold, which I don't remember how many speeches were in that one. But that was 30 right there. And then there's some on the
okay.
leadership side. So it was a long track to get to that DTM.
Well,
Um,
right, and some people do multiple DTMs, right?
yeah, one of our members at Susquehanna, Doug Strand, he had 5.
Yes, 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 I
Is
remember Doug, he was quite a character, definitely, an influence there. He, was certainly committed to Toastmasters, and, yeah, yeah, but you've earned your DTM, right? Right, Nick?
Yeah, I got mine in 2016. I'm still working on the
Okay,
second one. There's
okay,
I've got um a whole bunch of the lower level stuff done for those awards, but there's one thing at the highest leadership spot that's really hard to get. It's called the club coach, club mentor, or club sponsor, where you're basically reestablishing a club that's struggling, like helping them rebuild and become distinguished again,
Mhm. Mhm.
or starting a new club, and then building them up to get distinguished.
Mhm.
So opportunity for that, especially after COVID, has been small. Like, or it's been large because there's lots of opportunity to help grow clubs, but they're all not growing. Clubs
Okay.
have been
Yeah.
actually dying
Yeah.
out. The Susquehanna
Yeah.
Club actually had to close because we were low on members.
Okay.
So we just basically combined the Fort Monmouth and Susquehanna Club. Um,
Okay.
but we had to pick one to close, and Susquehanna was the one we closed.
Okay.
Um, that evening club I was going to, the Soaring Eagles, they also had to close. Um, and that's been a recurring issue. Just clubs struggle getting membership.
Mhm.
Um, and some clubs have been doing a lot of virtual meetings, and people didn't like virtual meetings. The education system changed. Remember, we had the manuals, which were great.
Mhm.
They're easy to follow, easy to understand what you had to do. You had physical medium to bring to your meetings that you could just reference real quick. Now everything's
Mhm.
online, and it's
Mhm.
a little bit more cumbersome to get to and then to
Yeah.
access when you're in the meeting. Like, we have to remember to print out our evaluation forms so we can have them at the meeting, because nobody's like, when we're at the meeting, nobody's online. We're in the room. We have some
Mhm.
people that are virtual, but even them on their computer, like logging
Mm.
into Toastmasters, it's taking resources away from your connection. So, your video
Yeah.
feed,
Yeah.
is bogs down and stuff. So you don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
Do they have books available if you request them?
They did printed materials for a little bit, but
Mm.
and now they've transitioned to a second um, education
Oh,
platform, and I don't even know anymore. I haven't been paying attention to it.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
I'm just trying to wrap up what I have to do. So my company formed a new club, so I'm mentoring them as a
Mhm.
club mentor. So we get to distinguish, then I can wrap up that second DTM, and then I could probably get a third and fourth if I can do that two more times because
Right.
I've got the
Right.
rest of the stuff. Just and it's not something that I'm focused on.
Sure.
I'm mentoring
Yeah.
individuals, and if I get into these positions where I can mentor a club at that level and help a club get to distinguished, I'll do it. But I'm focused on helping individuals and helping people. So I've
Mhm.
been the area director, and I work with the clubs and talk to the presidents and the vice presidents on how they can help improve their club.
Mhm.
But if they weren't looking for a club coach, somebody to be at the meetings, and help with them more often, then
Mhm.
I
Right.
wasn't I wasn't pushing for it. Just doing my job and helping individuals.
Yeah.
My Labrador is getting a little nosy back here and wants
Yeah.
some attention.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. It doesn't surprise me that it's changed in that way, but it have you seen despite with the issues that clubs are having with maintaining, retaining members, is there more of an interest, would you say, in speaking in general, especially now with, the rise of video conferencing post-pandemic with Zoom and Teams, or
Yeah, there are people that come to our meetings just for the virtual aspect, and then they're
Mhm,
um, just just because they're speaking more and doing more webinars and lunch and learns. But when they find out
mhm.
we're on camera, our cameras are on, they're like, maybe not for me. Like, because that's what the thing that they avoid in
Yeah,
their current
yeah, yeah.
meetings is a lot of them are their cameras are off. They're using PowerPoint as a crutch to be the visual aspect of their speaking, and
Yeah,
they're missing out on a huge piece of communication, and that's that
Right.
personal
Yep. Yep.
interaction that you get when you can see the people and see how they respond to what you're saying. A lot of time in those webinars, you have no idea if anybody's paying attention. I've done
Right.
them
Right.
for as a pitch for Toastmasters, or I'm
Mhm.
teaching a communication or leadership skill to an organization as a pitch for Toastmasters. And I
Mhm.
say, oh, everybody get your cameras on because I need to see your faces. Um, and you need to see mine. So I'll turn the PowerPoint off if I'm using one. And say, all right, now I'm on camera and you have to look at me and you have to
Mhm.
see the
Yeah.
passion on my face and the excitement that I have for what I'm talking about. And
Right.
I think that's really important. Verbal
Can
communication is
Yep.
20%, nonverbal is 80%. And in our
Yeah.
meetings, when we're speaking in front of people, that's evident because
Mhm.
your movement has so much effect, your gestures have so much effect. You can do things with your body that's distracting. Um, let's say your hand gestures are make you look nervous, but maybe
Mhm.
the way you're speaking isn't nervous.
Mhm.
Well, your audience is going to pick up on the fact that you're nervous anyways, because they
Right.
can see your
Right.
hands. If
Mhm.
you are motioning one direction but talking about another direction, or you're creating something called cognitive dissonance, where the your audience brain is being distracted between two different ideas. So, like if you're trying to number something and you put out the wrong number, that can be that's distraction. Or if you're trying to talk about something in chronological order and you go from left to right, for you, well, that's right to left for them, and that's opposite of what chronological order would be in their brains. So
Mhm.
you're going to create that cognitive dissonance, and it's
Yeah.
going to be distracting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, it's kind of a mixed bag, I think, with, Teams and Zoom, and using that so much communication now. In some ways, it's great to have this as an option, but it's all too easy to just turn your camera off and hide behind it, and then you're back to, there's no real benefit aside from just going back to a teleconference on the phone like we used to do.
Yep, you
Um,
are correct.
and for
So
me, with public speaking too, it's easier in a lot of ways. I can control my own. For me, at least, I can control my anxiety a bit more when I'm presenting over Teams versus live in person. But at the same time, I know that I still need that in-person interaction to really to keep up with um, my skills in that area and getting the practice I need.
yeah, so
So
whenever
yeah,
possible, tell everybody to turn their cameras on. Turn off
right.
the PowerPoint. What I like to do for PowerPoint is I'll create a slideshow for my presentation online, and it'll have blank slides in there where that's my signal. Hey, turn off the slideshow, and stop sharing the
Mhm,
screen. Get the camera on, and I'll have very little information. It'll probably be mostly pictures, mostly visual stuff to demonstrate something I'm talking about, as opposed to
mhm,
having all the facts on there. And then
mhm,
I'll have a separate slideshow that's my send ahead or my send after, that'll have all the stuff written out. So
mhm,
that way they get the notes, even if they weren't
mhm,
writing them down. And I think that's a better way to present because you'll be able to, make your impact with your voice, make your impact with um, your communication skills,
mhm,
and get your message delivered. And you'll another thing is interacting with your audience is something that you really need to do when you're virtual. Um, you got
mhm,
to you got to engage with your audience and make sure that they are receiving your message. Because if you don't engage, you don't get that feedback that that they heard what you said. Well, they could walk away with some other message or some garbled thing that you might have said, and and not get that takeaway that you want.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's that's really important when you're trying to inspire people. It's really important when you're trying to convince people to make a decision. Um, it's really important when you're trying to get everybody on the same page for how a project's going to progress.
Mhm.
So you don't want them showing up at the next meeting thinking, they're supposed to do something different.
Right. Yep. Yep. Clearly document everything you're trying to get across and repeat it a few times and make sure it sticks.
Yeah. All right. What do you feel you accomplished in Toastmasters to help push your career forward?
It definitely learned the value of practicing what I want to say, how I want to present myself, um, and also that it's never a good idea to put things off until the last minute, which I talked a little bit about that earlier. But really, as far as some speaking skills, which I definitely developed in the little bit that I did do speaking at Toastmasters, it's definitely the importance of being authentic, being your true self. You know, tell your own story. Don't try to be something you're not, but also try to be a bit entertaining. And I mentioned a little bit earlier with I still remember your Miyagi life lesson speech, and there was an entertainment aspect to that, which helped to really help me to really remember that and what you were saying. But I try to do that as well with a few speeches that I gave. And one speech I gave, it was the information speech, and I talked about starting a small business. And there's an acronym um, called MOO, and that's marketing, operations, and organization. And so those are three key areas you have to get down as far as putting together a business plan and defining them. But at the very end, I said, you need to milk this for all it's worth and remember the MOO acronym. But I remember everybody laughing, and I'm not used to making people laugh very often, so that kind of sticks with me when that happens. So I definitely enjoyed that. And then the last speech I did was about how at the time the Scottish were voting on whether or not they wanted to separate from the United Kingdom, and I was arguing that that was not a good idea. They should stay in the UK. It's just not that what I think matters much, but I quoted a few lines from Braveheart at the beginning, which everybody appreciated, and kind of alluded back to that. So that was my way of making things kind of stick for that speech. So yeah, those are just a few things
Definitely
I
stuck because I
remember.
remember those moments.
Yeah,
Um, just like my Miyagi one stuck for you. So,
yeah, yeah,
Ralph Smedley had a saying, founder of Toastmasters,
yeah,
Ralph
yeah.
Smedley.
Uh-huh.
We learn in great moments of joy. So we have those great moments of joy in our meetings. It helps us um, learn those skills and take home those lessons better. But also, when we're speaking, we need to make sure that our audience is having those great moments of joy. So we got to add a
Hmm.
little levity, use a little bit of humor to
Right.
in our speeches, and I think, hey, we did it.
Yeah,
Message received and maintained. So,
yeah.
all right. Last couple questions here before we get out. Um, do you still do Toastmasters, and then why or why not?
So I don't. So I ended up no longer being an active member around the spring, early summer of 2015. And that was due to the fact that at the time I had moved on to a new position. So I moved from RDECOM headquarters to Army Research Lab and the technology transfer office at the time. And so that was actually a promotion. And um, the job that I was hired into was very focused on a more restrictive schedule, I should say. So I didn't have the time over lunch like I had had. when I was at RDCOM headquarters. So that was one reason why, I really couldn't continue with the regular meetings like I had been before. I just couldn't put the time into it. And then the other part of it too, I saw that to continue with Toastmasters and to go on and do more things, I mean, there were opportunities that were great for conferences outside of the regular meetings, and they would be on the weekends and did different, in the regional area. I remember going to Dover to the Speedway one time for a I don't know if it was regional. I know there are different sections in Toastmasters. I forget if it
Right.
was regional or not, but that was definitely a great experience. But as my kids were getting older, they started taking on their own activities, and also there was just more of a need to be there for them and support them in what they were doing. So, I thought it was fair. I had plenty of opportunities to pursue my own interests for quite a while, and it was time to kind of step back a bit and support them and them pursuing what they want to spend time on. So those are just a few reasons. But as time goes on, I definitely could see myself getting involved again if it makes sense. My schedule right now, it's not much different than it was at the time that I stepped back from being involved. I'm right now on a temporary assignment as it's called executive fellow, and so I'm or technical assistant to the director here at ARL for the business directorate for the acting director. So that can be pretty time intensive and as well. So I'm here until April, at which point my schedule might ease up a bit, but you know, uh, there's always something else to focus on, and it's a matter of prioritizing, like we talked a little bit about that earlier too, and knowing what makes sense, what's right thing to do at the right time. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, it is a large time commitment to better yourself, and I'm sure there's other ways outside of Toastmasters that you are bettering yourself and yourself as a parent, yourself as a um, your career in your life. Um,
hmm
Toastmasters is just one way, and it's very um, specific on how it's intended to influence and build your life. But I found that it's a community. It's a place where I fit in. It's a place where I'm going to be able to help other people,
yeah,
which is one of my
yeah,
passions is helping other people.
yeah,
So I'm always mentoring a Toastmaster or a group of Toastmasters. I have what's called Mentoring Mondays, where I take
yeah,
an hour out of my day to just have um, a Teams channel open where people can come in and ask me questions about Toastmasters, get some one-on-one for their speech that's coming up, or talk about one of their roles that they want to do, or even their officer role, and just help people. So I got 30 minutes for the clubs at APG, and then I got 30 minutes for my contractor, which club, which is a virtual club. We're all
hmm
over the place. I'm the only one at APG that's in the club right now. So
hmm
hopefully that'll change.
sure,
Bring a few others in,
sure.
but
Yeah, no, I appreciate you definitely mentioning the mentoring aspect of Toastmasters. Just how
yeah,
valuable that is. I really enjoyed that part of the competent leader track, and I really enjoyed helping younger Toastmasters when I was active in the club with reviewing their speeches beforehand and offering suggestions. And I definitely could see myself doing more of that as time goes on, not just with public speaking Toastmasters, but other areas as well. And but Toastmasters is a great place to learn how to mentor somebody and how to give constructive feedback and really help somebody else achieve what they want to.
yeah, feedback is a huge part of Toastmasters because without it, we don't improve. And you
hmm
can have um, somebody give you a an evaluation that is like getting hit with a hammer, and that's no good for you at all. All it does is demoralize you, and it can push you away. So
Mhm.
Toastmasters is very good about training people on how to do these evaluations. So you build people up. Um,
Mhm.
what I like to say is you build them up before you break them down,
Mhm.
um, because you want to give them praise. You want to say, hey, this is what you did really well. These are the skills you already have. This is what you are great at. Here's where you excelled. This is what I heard, saw, felt. You do that part first of your evaluation, and then you get to the point where you say, all right, this here's where you can improve, and then if you want to challenge yourself, here's what you can do
Mhm.
next.
Mhm.
Um, and I that structure of an evaluation is just so great for helping people improve. And the
Mhm.
more that gets into um, leadership in organizations and they use that same formula, the better their employees are going to be, the better retention they're going to have for their employees. Um, the more they'll be able to build leaders instead of followers. It's a great program. It's got a lot of um, value when you can put the time and effort into it. Um,
Mhm.
so we've been talking for quite a bit here, so I think it's time to wrap it up. I want to thank Jason for taking the time to speak to us about Toastmasters and his experience. He's um, is it, it's been a long time since he's been in Toastmasters, so it's great that he's able to look back at those skills fondly, remember some of those moments that we had, and share those with us today. His answers are going to help current and future Toastmasters have a better experience and reach new heights. So thank you for talking about how you evolved in Toastmasters, Jason. And I'm going to thank all our listeners as well for sticking with us and hearing those lessons. So
Yes, and thank you, Nick, for inviting me on. It's been great to catch up with you. And I've got to say, I wasn't surprised at all that you have your own podcast promoting Toastmasters. Not one
that's
bit, because your dedication to Toastmasters specifically, and so in personal improvement development overall is very clear to me. Always has been. So thank you.
all right. Thank you. You have a great one.
You too.